Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This morning, I'm going to be reacting to a video requested by Nighthouse Hapatrax. It's called Index Titanicus, History of the Legio Mortis Warhammer and Horus Heresy lore, made on the Oculus Imperia YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out the original video as well as Oculus Imperia's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you want to check out my previous reaction to other Oculus Imperia Warhammer 40k content, remember that the Warhammer 40k content created by YouTuber's reaction playlist is going to be at the top right here. You'll be able to access my other Oculus Imperia Warhammer 40k content reaction in that playlist. Yes. Let us start with the Legio Mortis. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Sorry guys, I can't find my pen. Hold on. Okay, maybe I can use this one. Alright.
Treachery is, on occasion, a thing of circumstance. As shown with the previous record concerning the Legios Estobiacs of the Titan Legions, which can be accessed in this archival stack should need be, it can be the result of circumstances entirely beyond one's control. With others, the decision to betray seems, frankly, inevitable.
Well, okay, when it comes to betrayal, yes, there might be factors that are related to you making a decision to betray, but ultimately, you can't blame those external factors alone. You alone have the final, decision-making process. If you reach that edge and you jump over, that's your choice. That's your choice. If you want to become a heretic, that's your choice. Yes, there might be factors that might be pushing you down that path, but you can always, jump aside and be loyal to the Imperium of Man.
There are, across the span of human history, those of us to whom perfidy comes easy, a natural evolution, if you will, of our base state. Whether this is dictated by circumstance, character, or a mix of the two is moot. The only thing that is inevitable is the dagger in the back, the plunging hand of betrayal. We can question why. We can attempt to scry the histories of these heretics for answers. We may even find some. In the case of the subjects of this particular chronicle, such an effort seems wasted. It is hard to imagine their fate having any path save for the one they walked their engines upon. Scant anything within their actions or histories point to the possibility of any conclusion other than the one that was. Nonetheless, duty demands that I try, and I am nothing if not a diligent servant to my imperial duty. Know then that this is a record of the titanic betrayers of the Collegia, the Death's Heads, the Legio Mortis. There were few in the early days of the Imperium, and even fewer now in this darkest of millenniums, who can count their histories and honors in the standing that the Legio Mortis once did. It is likely one could have counted upon one's digits the organizations remaining extant whose foundations lie as far back as theirs, for the origins of the Legio Mortis lie within the origins of the Mechanicum itself.
Wow, they go all the way that back, far back in history. Alright. So, what, they were like the main armies of the Mechanicum of the time in unifying Mars. Okay.
During the benighted Age of Strife, as apocalyptic warp storms cut humankind off from its vast galactic territories, the Sol systems descended, as those of its now lost stellar empire did, into bloodshed, horror, and civil war.
The Age of Strife.
Mars, sister planet to Terra, humanity's first off-world colony, was not spared this. Strife bled across the heavily industrialized world as the various forges, corporations, and polities that made up Martian society competed and eventually fought for the now scant resources which had previously fueled the world. From the materials that had stoked the production to food and water that simply kept Martians alive, all were now in short supply.
And you can imagine, Mars is not made for human beings. Mars is not made for human beings. It's a dead world. Now you're dealing with food shortages, water shortages, the environment of Mars, which is not conducive for life, solar radiation, civil wars happening on Mars. It's quite a surprise, that the population on this planet has survived throughout all of this traumatic experience and has risen up from it and become, the mechanicum of Mars. Really. Because it should be extremely difficult to survive in such a terrain. I understand if it was Terra, because it's Earth, it still has its atmosphere, it still has the ingredients to make life and for life to continue to endure. But Mars is not like that. Mars is dead.
Desperation made animals of the peoples of Mars, and the ensuing wars led to an even greater tragedy, the destruction of the planet's terraforming machinery. Mars reverted back to how she had ever been, a rust-red wasteland, now one choked with the fumes of belching war machines and rendered even more toxic by rampant use of atomic, chemical, and biological weaponry. From the ashes of centuries of bloodshed and horror, a new force emerged on Mars, the machine cult of the Mechanicum. While their full rise will be detailed in a later record, the Mechanicum was set aside from the various warring techno-barbarian tribes, rampant thinking machines, and hideous psi-carnivora by their singular unity.
Psi-carnivora? You mean like cybernetic carnivorous animals? Whoa.
Brought together as they were by a religious worship of the divine within the machine. This unity allowed them to slowly but steadily subsume Mars under their control, aided, however, by their technological mastery of secrets long thought lost to history, but preserved amongst the ranks of their priesthood. One of these secrets was the creation of Titans, gigantic bipedal weapons platforms. Amongst the first engines were the Legio Mortis, one of the original 3 Legios founded upon the surface of Red Mars in an age before the Mechanicum even commanded her fully. Mortis, along with the Legios Tempestus and Ignatum.
Tempestus and Ignatum, okay? And Mortis. Okay, 3 Titan legions.
Formed the Triad Ferrum Morgulus.
Triad Ferrum Morgulus, okay. Ooh, my spelling.
First 3 Titan legions in human history. Mortis's role in the earliest years was twofold, with both stated aims being simple and direct. Firstly, they were to be the guardians of the Fabricator General, the ruler of the Mechanicum, sentinels to his personal domain. Secondly, they were to, without hesitation, reproach, or mercy, commit to the annihilation of any and all life, human, alien, or machine, that threatened the machine cult.
So you could say they were like the custodians with the Thunder Warriors combined into one. You know, where the Emperor of Mankind, he had these custodians who were his bodyguard protectors, and then he had the Thunder Warriors who were his warriors that would subdue enemies across Terra. So the Fabricator General has the Legio Mortis as his custodians and as well as his Thunder Warriors at the same time. Okay.
Twin role as both praetorians and executioners, was one that Mortis set themselves to with grim determination. They were ever at the van of the Mechanicum's early tagmata, their engine maniples walking in support of early Skitarii cohorts and slaved Cybernetica robots. Their success was unquestionable, for they laid waste to the Fabricator General's enemies, both without and, sometimes necessarily, within, with a precision that appeared simultaneously both cold and gleeful in its totality.
I mean, a Titan just needs to walk, and an entire settlement will be destroyed. They don't even have to use their weapons. They just need to walk. I mean, these things, these monstrosities, these mechanical monstrosities are devastating, you know.
The pitch black and dried blood red of their livery became a byword across the red sands for unrestrained destruction, for none would stand against the engines of Mortis when they began to walk. The Legio itself became increasingly insular and cold, even to their brothers amongst the Triad Ferrum, liaising little with representatives from the other two Legios unless circumstances absolutely demanded it. It was a situation somewhat understandable, given their place at the Fabricator General's side.
This is something that I would expect from the bodyguards of the Fabricator General. Just like the custodians of the Emperor, you know, they're not supposed to fraternize with, other forces within the army or within the Imperium of Man. They're not supposed to fraternize with the Thunder Warriors. They're not supposed to fraternize with the Astartes or the Imperial Guard or anyone else. Their duty is the protection of the Emperor of mankind. And just like Legio Mortis, they cannot fraternize with other legions because it might compromise the security that they're responsible for in terms of the Fabricator General. If their emotions cloud their judgment, if their closeness to other legions or organizations compromise their security, that will then translate in the compromise of the Fabricator General's security. So, yeah, it's understandable why they would be so distant from everybody else. It's purely for security purposes. You cannot have the bodyguards being compromised emotionally or their information being shared with people who are not belonging to Legio Mortis.
On one hand, one must doubtlessly maintain a distance from one's fellows, since one may be their executioner one day. It appears, however, Legio Mortis enjoyed this aspect altogether too much. The honor of being the personal Legio to the Fabricator General was one they were eager and quick to remind others of, and an authority the princeps of the Legio would often wield in order to secure their engine's favorable berths, transports, or repair priorities.
So they looked deeper inward into themselves, inward perfection, inward pride, and they saw other Legio Titanicus as lesser to them because they are the bodyguards of the Fabricator General. They deserve the best of the best, nothing but the best. And, they would not accept anything lesser than that. I guess pride has got to their heads, and now their heads are inflating, or their ego, is inflating their heads.
Their distance from their sibling legios, and later their scion legios, only grew more so, becoming a fierce rivalry bordering on outright animosity and hatred in the case of the Legio Ignatum. Even the Legio's territory on Mars became a physical representation of their isolation, with engines from both Ignatum and the neighboring Legio Tempestus forbidden by sacrosanct treaty from walking upon it. Subsequent to the union of Terra and Mars, and the signing of the Treaty of Olympus, and by the outset of the Great Crusade, the Legio Mortis was the Imperium's most numerous Titan legion, by sheer weight of the political clout they wielded on Mars itself. Befitting this, Mortis Titan maniples were often assigned to the most prestigious Imperial expeditionary fleets, notably including the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet under the command of 16th Primarch Horus Lupercal of the Luna Wolves.
Well, you don't say.
As the Crusade expanded outwards, so too did Mortis's numbers and reputation continue to grow. Their victory roll includes some of the greatest triumphs in Crusade history, both due to their vast presence in the Crusade, but also their undeniable skill and combat abilities. The chained fury of the Legio, previously used in uniting Mars under the machine cult, was now turned upon recalcitrant human regimes, mutant hovels, and alien empires. Had they ever shown restraint in destruction previously, any shred of this was now abandoned.
I'm sure they never showed restraint to any opponents on Mars when they were there to form, the Mechanicum as one of the main tools of the Fabricator General. I'm sure they never held back.
The executioners of Mars laid waste to all before them, and the galaxy trembled before the tread of their engines. That being said, old rivalries, old animosities, these are things not easily shucked. Mortis Princeps quickly developed a reputation for viewing legios from lesser forges as distinctly inferior to those of Mars, by sheer virtue of their birth world, and interactions between those of the Red Planet and other legios were often fraught by the naked contempt among Mortis's engine crews for their upstart cousins in the rest of the Collegia Titanica.
That's a bit concerning, the fact that they are further distancing themselves from everybody and they're seeing their fellow Legio Titanicus as lesser to them and, a nuisance or upstarts or, people that are not worthy of their attention or respect. That is very concerning, especially in times of war where you would need people to have your back, and if you don't respect them, they'll just turn on you, or they won't put their 100% effort in fighting with you against a common foe.
Mortis's cold and calculating nature would often extend to ruthless use of those titans from other legios placed under their nominal command, by virtue of Mortis's prestige, age, and experience. Likened by some as being akin to how Astartes legions, such as the 4th Legion Iron Warriors, utilized Imperial army support, the now infamous example of this was during the Imperial Compliance Campaign on the planet Anarch Zeta in the Shedim Drifts. The Ealdari of craftworld Morioi were holding Imperial forces at bay with such stubborn opposition that Horus and the Luna Wolves petitioned their attached titans of the Legio Mortis, together with maniples drawn from the Legio Furians, Tiger Eyes, Legio Osidax, Cockatrices, and Legio Ataris, Firebrands, to walk upon the world and annihilate the Xenos foe.
I like the Eldar Titans as well, They're very elegant, very streamlined, organized looking, and even their guns, simple to the point, and it's just clean. It just looks good. It looks eye-catching, eye-appealing, with their Titans. I like the Imperium of Man Titans as well, how bulky they are, how they're bristling with guns everywhere. But there's just something about the Eldari Titans that's just, you just feel relaxed looking at them. Yeah. I'm not a heretic. I'm not a heretic, okay?
Battle raged around them. Mortis, in overall command, ordered the engines of Ataris to launch a series of probing attacks under the guise of gauging the enemy's Titan-class strength. The Firebrands, were indeed successful in this attempt, arguably far too much, as they were rapidly engaged by a superior number of lithe and terrifying Eldari engines. The Legio Furians, ordered to guard their flank, rapidly disengaged, leaving a full demi-legio of Ataris surrounded. The Imperial war machines were annihilated, with only a single Warhound-class Titan making it back to the Crusade lines, bellowing hails at the Mortis engines that were supposed to have come to its support.
This is dishonorable. This is very dishonorable by the Legio Mortis. When your fellow Legio Titans are under threat, you should be there to back them up. You should be fighting with them side by side and not throwing other Legios under the bus.
In the battle's aftermath, it was revealed that this had been a ruse concocted by Horus himself to draw the full forces of Morioi away from the craft world itself and leave it vulnerable to a spear-tip assault from his Luna Wolves.
That's okay. That's understandable. That's a military plan and formation that I can understand. Okay? Because when you are part of the military, you have to understand that you are expendable to some extent. You are expendable. And even if you are in a Titan, you are expendable. I understand Horus's plan of making a diversionary tactic, so that it would allow the space and time for the Lunar Wolves, along with their Primarch, to attack the craft world. I understand that. What I'm not agreeing with is the conduct of Legio Mortis in how they did not join forces with Legio Ataris in becoming that distraction. Instead, they just threw them under the bus and allowed them to die, while they'll be the ones be taking the glory. And that is dishonorable.
It would appear almost certain, as far as this chronicler is concerned, that the Legio Mortis utilized its standing and the relatively lesser one of the firebrands to ensure that their engines were not placed in harm's way, preferring instead to sacrifice the upstart Legio Ataris.
And they'll be the ones taking all the glory. Once the dust is settled, once the enemy has been defeated, it will be Legio Mortis being the one that won the victory.
There does, however, exist times during Mortis's history that the Legio dearly wishes were forgotten by the tides of time, notably their actions during the Battle of Prospero. Assigned to prosecute the sub-thane of the Forge World of Chau Arcad, members of whom had been deemed traitorous by association with the 15th Legion Thousand Sons, Mortis found itself engaging a dozen engines of the Legio Zestobiacs. Vastly underestimating the skill in defense these engines of the Iron Vigil possessed, and the advantage given to them by their psychically imbued mind impulse unit core systems, the Mortis Maniples, under the command of famed Signoris Princeps Maldus Drain, were all but annihilated, saved only by Constantine Valdor's grudging commitment of the Emperor's own Titans, the Ordo Sinister, to the field.
Yeah, when they come on the field, it's almost assured victory, definitely.
The Legio did their utmost to bury this incident, redacting records, reassigning officers, or converting the surviving crews to servitors.
This is all in an effort to save face. It's all in an effort to save face, to always be seen in the public as still, the premier defense of the fabricator general, and that they cannot be defeated by anyone. But here they were defeated. And instead of learning from that experience, instead of embracing that experience and trying to improve on themselves, they decided to sweep it under the rug. They decided to make sure that no one would know the truth by either killing them, turning them into servitors, or other forms or ways that result in the needless deaths of so many people just because they lost. That's the arrogance, that's the pride, the ego that has now ballooned into something that is just embarrassing, really.
Acts which, given the pall of secrecy the entire Prospero campaign existed under, were likely entirely unnecessary. Even to those of us granted access to the records, the conflict at the Arcadian subfane is itself a footnote, subsumed by the importance of the conflict between the 6th Legion Space Wolves and the Thousand Sons. Mortis, however, could not bear the slight against their honor, coming down hard on any and all they felt were to blame for the debacle. Indiscriminate became the watchword for how Mortis would comport itself in those later years of the Crusade. Their methods of war-making grew even bloodier, ever more destructive, with the Titan Legion renowned for their brutality, now becoming known for the cruel pleasure they appeared to take in the apocalyptic ruin unleashed upon planets that stood in their way.
And you could say that they did these activities alone. The strongest are strong alone, essentially. Where they don't see anybody within other Legio Titanicus as their equals. They don't see them as their brothers and sisters at arms, within the crusade. They just an army towards themselves, and that's it. Everybody else is second class, third class, and irrelevant in their mind. Yeah. Why didn't the Fabricator General rein in Legio Mortis? Why? Because their conduct, their actions, not necessarily on the battlefield, but how they treat, other legions within the Imperium of Man, it is very distasteful. It brings the name of the Fabricator General into disrepute with their actions, because they are acting under his name as the Fabricator General. Their actions reflect on the Fabricator General's leadership, quality.
Yet, despite widespread concern with their methods amongst those of the Divisio Militaris, none could gainsay their unassailable political power, which the Princeps of Mortis would wield in much the same manner as they did the volcano cannons and plasma annihilators mounted upon their engines. Quick to anger, stubbornly prideful, and utterly disdainful of any who they saw as lesser than they, Mortis was a political wrecking ball, commandeering transports, gainsaying repair orders, and securing deployments to prestigious campaigns with no subtlety.
They were true bullies, weren't they? I guess this is a culture that's within Legio Mortis that's not easily changeable. What they've become was a process that has begun from so long ago, during the times of when they were unifying Mars. Up until now, it has now created itself into some sort of monster that, consumes and leaves nothing for everybody else. It's a cancer. And this cancer is going to grow and fester, and it's going to be one of the killing, poisons that will affect the Crusade as they turn traitor, as they join Horus Lupercal, against the Emperor of Mankind. So you could say, their betrayal was inevitable because of their actions, because of their attitude and how they conduct themselves. Yeah.
Indeed, the scorn with which they treated imperial authority speaks to a deeper issue within the Legio. their true loyalties. Mortis had never made any claim to be loyal to the cause of the Imperium.
They didn't kneel before the Emperor as the Omnisire? I mean, I understand their loyalty to the Fabricator General. The Fabricator General is their lord, but the Fabricator General's lord is the Omnisire, the Emperor of mankind. Why didn't they kneel before him? Why didn't the Emperor also question that? That there's a particular legion of Titans that are not, swearing allegiance to me. They're not bowing before me. Why?
Mortis's allegiance lay, as it had always lain, at the feet of the Fabricator General of the Mechanicum. That the Mechanicum's goals lay in tandem with those of the Imperium was a matter of convenience for Mortis, and an excuse to travel abroad upon the stars and earn the glory and rewards that came with it. Unlike many of their fellow Titan legions, they viewed the Great Crusade with a detached cynicism, never being the ideologues that others, such as the Legio Praesagius, were.
Yeah, they're just here for their own vanity, their own pride and ego, and they care less for any conquest in the name of the Imperium of Man. It's just for their own indulgence.
In their role as wardens of the cult Mechanicus, they were tasked to be watchful for any potential enemies to the person of the Fabricator General, and this the Legio assumed to encompass allies of the era. If a Titan Legion could not trust, and indeed actively feud with, those beside whom their order had been founded, what hope did those removed from the Mechanicum by ideology, religion, or politics have? By the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, the Legio Mortis was the most numerous and most powerful Titan Legion within the Imperium, to the extent that the Divisio Militaris had some difficulty gaining an accurate read upon their numbers, this being a facet both of their widespread deployment and the Legio's own demand for operational secrecy.
That is concerning. Such information is very important for statistical purposes, for military purposes. It is very important. And also for, accountability purposes as well. But, yeah, such oversight has been lacking in the Imperium of Man. Not just when it comes to this Titan Legion, but many other activities within the Imperium of Man, where oversight should have been a very important mechanism for the continuation of the Imperium of Man in a well-oiled machine kind of ethos. Such things have been put aside, by the Emperor and by Malkador the Sigillite, all because of their focus on completing their missions of conquering the entire galaxy for the Emperor's great plan.
Contradictory though the concept may be for engine-class war machines. Estimates extant from the period vary wildly, placing Mortis's numbers at anywhere between 150 and 300 Titans. The true extent will likely never be known.
And imagine, majority of those Titans were on Mars, and when they betrayed and they were heading for the Siege of Terra, just imagine how many Titans from Legio Mortis have just arrived there to fight against the forces defending the Imperial Palace. It must have been crazy.
Is that the Legio had extended its range to encompass the majority of the Crusade's active front lines, ensuring it was placed in the most prestigious of campaigns and amongst the forces of the most celebrated commanders.
It's all for their own vanity.
It was this tendency, as well as their undeniable records of victory, that had seen them become the Titan Legion of choice for War Master Horus Lupercal, and had ensured that they were in an ideal position to become the primary vanguard of the traitor Titanicus. The renowned Imperator-class Titan Dies Irae took part in the atrocity on Istavan III, and later the great betrayal upon the sands of the drop site massacre, becoming the first Titan to fire upon loyalist Imperial forces. And, across the galaxy, Mortis engines turned their wrath upon the unsuspecting forces of the Imperium. Ironically, this was not even done at the behest of the War Master, but, instead, the Fabricator General.
And the Fabricator General swore allegiance to Horus Lupercal.
In typical Mortis fashion, it was only the decision of Fabricator General Kelbor Hal to side with Horus that swayed their guns. But sway them so terribly it did. The heresy would etch the name of the Legio into the annals of the Imperium forever, as a byword for terror, destruction, and betrayal, as their appetite for annihilation would only grow in tandem with the madness that would come to define them. Until such a time as their later histories may be explored. Ave Imperator. Gloria in excelsis terra. This video and this channel are made possible through the incredibly kind contributions of my Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to help support the channel, head on over to patreon.com/Oculus Imperia. And if you're looking to keep in touch with the channel, get regular updates, you can follow me on Twitter @ButtStuffKaiju, or check us out on Discord. A link will be in the description and on the channel page.
Alright guys, that is it with Index Titanicus History of the Legio Mortis Warhammer and Horus Heresy lore made on the Oculus Imperia YouTube channel. And this was a request from Nighthouse Hapatrax. Legio Mortis, in the beginning they had a duty. Their duty was the protection of the Fabricator General. But they began to descend down a path that led to their inward perfection, inward ego, inward vanity and pride that slowly consumed them as a legion that was meant to protect the Fabricator General, but now they are also pursuing other interests, instead of working together with their other Legio Titanicus or anyone within the Imperium of Man. They just saw themselves as the important center of power and authority when it comes to Legio Titanicus legions, if I can say that. They look down upon other legions. They look down upon other forces belonging to the Imperium of Man. They did not adhere to the standards of what it means to be a member within the Mechanicum as well as a member of the Imperium of Man. They did all they wanted for their own pursuits, their own desires, their own ambitions, and if their pride or their image had been tarnished, they would do whatever means necessary to rectify that situation as soon as possible, even if it meant costing the lives of hundreds of thousands just to keep a secret. So from becoming the guardians and protectors of the Fabricator General, they became these bloated, arrogant, loud people that just lost the plot completely. They lost the plot. Because the custodians of the Emperor of Mankind, they are not like this. They don't talk. They don't, just bluster a lot of nonsense about themselves, being prideful or arrogant. They don't do any of that stuff. They know their duty. They know their responsibility. And that's where it stops. But with Legio Mortis, they just delved deeper into this position that they're in as the guardians of the Fabricator General. And it consumed them. And definitely, their betrayal would be inevitable. because they have sworn allegiance to the Fabricator General and not to the Emperor of Mankind, who is the Omnissiah. The fact that they did not do that, it's already, like a red flag. Yeah, interesting. Interesting to know about these traitors, these heretics. I wonder, does the Legio Mortis still exist in some sort of form and shape in the 42nd millennium? I think they do, but of course they are Chaos Titans now. They're not, just regular Imperium of Man Titans. They are Chaos Titans. And probably Abaddon, the Despoiler, is using them as well for his own crusades across the galaxy. Yeah, but this was interesting. Legio Mortis. Alright, thank you again to Night House Hypertrex for the requests. Thank you also to Oculus Imperia for compiling the information for this video. It's been really informative, hearing about Legio Mortis and Legio Tempestus and Ignamtum. Ignamtum. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, it was very interesting to hear about the beginnings of this legion and how they slowly descended into, becoming traitors, essentially. Yeah. All right. That's it. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Oculus Imperia's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay?